All right, without further ado, we got Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres on the pod because I'm currently on vacationing probably at the time of you guys listening to we had to bank a couple episodes, and the best person to bring on when we're doing crossovers and you just need to fill that time when you got to hit that word count for an essay. There's no man better to bring onto a pod than Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Sir, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I am living. Baseball is back. We had a little bit of an all-star break. I had a break myself. I'm also almost at the time of people listening to this on a vacation of my own, dare I say.
Oh,
So,
where you
that's
going?
the thing. That's the thing. I'm going to the lovely land of New York City. You know what I
Okay.
mean? But no, there and a couple other things that I'll be doing, so I'll be busy. But yeah, I'm really excited. And by now, when people are listening to this, I will be enjoying the Padres and Mets game. So that should be a whole lot of fun.
In New
And
York?
yeah, just baseball's back in the New York area. That is correct.
In the New York area. Wow, that's gonna be a pretty fun game. Padres versus Mets. I know we're going to be doing power rankings here, lineups and rotations, American League and National League. But since you brought up the Padres and Mets, do you have a favorite first half storyline or anything that's really kept your interest that you've watched so far from the first half? That's
I
it
think.
could be non-Padres too.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, for the Padres, it's been Manny Machado, and it's been the fact that he really stepped up and has been like that MVP candidate. And we've kind of been waiting for years. Is Machado going to have that like just world beating season? He's having a great season. Maybe he's not going to have the world beating season that maybe he might have had when he was younger, and maybe his defensive stats were a little bit better and whatnot. But bottom line, that's been a blast to watch for sure. And then Mackenzie Gore was a blast to watch for a while, and I still think that I'm hopeful that he's not hitting that rookie wall, but I think those are the top two. And then otherwise, it's like a plethora of like random little things. I'm enjoying the kind of just the back and forthness of the Philadelphia Phillies. I
Okay.
like this whole nobody knows what to think of that team. I personally think that they're good. I think that they're just that Harper injury just murdered them, and I think that also the Mariners thing. I think that that's kind of
Mhm.
the common take for a lot of people with Julio Rodriguez and that whole team kind of turning it around. They beat my team before the All Star break. I know that, which was not very fun. But just in terms of how can you not root for them? They're basically the Chicago Cubs of modern day MLB, right? They haven't been in the playoffs in the longest time, so it's an impossible team to root against right now. So I very much have enjoyed that. And also, what's his face? Our boy Robbie Ray turning it around.
Hey, yeah,
Our boy Robbie Ray.
he's finally heating up the Mariners rotation, which might crack our rotation rankings later in the pod, maybe. But yeah, I think all those storylines you've said, I probably agree with the most part. The Mariners, they've been kind of more interesting recently during this win streak. They probably weren't too interesting the first couple months of the season, unless it was. Why are the Mariners not reaching their expectations? Something like that. Manny Machado, of course, he's having a great season. I know you probably said he was going to be your MVP probably a couple months ago. Right now, that's probably not the case, I'm guessing. Because for me, one of the big storylines I've watched this season that's kind of annoying from a D-backs perspective is just the freaking. It's not even a revitalization because he's been good the last couple of years,
Mhm,
but just the reemergence of Paul Goldschmidt. I don't know because he seemed to
mhm.
re-enter the limelight after coming off like really good back-to-back seasons with the Cardinals. This year, he's just taken it to another level and he's just entered that MVP conversation. So for as a D-backs fan, when I watch the Carson Kellys and the Luke Weavers of the world, and I just suppose that with Paul Goldschmidt and what he's doing because I think also looking at that All-Star game, there's like 4 or 5 former D-backs out there with the Goldschmidts and the JD Martinez's, and you're just like, man, what if, right? What if the D-back just kept these guys what the team could have been? So those are probably some of the storylines. I just feel like that's the thing with baseball. Like there you kind of just have to like manufacture your own storylines. Like there's not really any player drama. Like we got the Juan Soto thing going on right now. But outside of that, it's like what Aaron Judge and his contract stuff. It's like Shohei Ohtani and Trout and the Angels always seeming to struggle. But I feel like the storylines aren't that great. The Phillies are probably an interesting storyline just because there's such like a mismatch pash of cast and characters and just an odd fit. But they had also just so much talent, so much offensive talent that they added during this offseason, even though they didn't all fit together, on paper, you're like, this lineup is going to be great and can mash its way to a lot of runs. You're just wondering about the defensive perspective of it. So I do like the Phillies team. I just wonder like Bryce Harper's injury, like you mentioned, and how well can that defense hold up once you get to the postseason. But I do think the Phillies are a pretty interesting team. But I just think I just think that's a big thing in baseball that we need. Just more storylines and narratives overall, just because I don't think we have enough of those.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And for me, I've also another thing that I've enjoyed is Buck Showalter of the New York
Yeah.
Mets. I've obviously adored my manager Bob Melvin, but I've enjoyed the Showalter memeage. I've enjoyed the evil look that he
Mm.
gives when players are getting hit. And it's interesting because, and I've said this on the podcast before, that like baseball is the type of sport where, first of all, the Mets have been hit more than any other team in the league by a significant amount when it comes to their batters. And they even got one hit at the All-Star game with Jeff McNeil, which was just very like, of course. It's baseball's this type of sport where the culture would be very. It would not surprise me. I got to be careful with how I phrase it, but it wouldn't surprise me. Here's my hot take of the day. Here we go.
Here we go.
It wouldn't surprise me if teams were annoyed that the Mets were annoyed about getting hit by pitches, so they started to actually hit them intentionally. I know that sounds extremely galaxy brain, Scientological, outkicky, whatever ridiculous way of QAnon type of way of thinking, but baseball and on, I guess you could say. I can't think of a good pun for that, but yeah, that is my take. It would not surprise me. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but at some level, I do wonder, like, how does it keep happening to this team? Are teams annoyed that we're not hitting you intentionally? Now we're going to show you what an intentional hit looks like. Because let's be fair, baseball culture has always been weird and largely pretty dumb and trivial. So it would not surprise me if this is the latest in that kind of bundle of nonsense.
No, it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, baseball, these guys will hold grudges for months. You'll wait to throw a ball at the other team's best player when you had a scuffle like 3 months earlier in the season. Like baseball players, and not even players, it's like the managers and the coaches a lot of times that hold these grudges, which is really weird because they're like, hey, don't bat flip on a home run, but go ahead and beam the other player's best player in the head. Like that's okay with your fastball. So the culture of baseball is pretty weird from that perspective. But I think everyone's doing a lot of Juan Soto talks and rumors and trade destinations. Do you have a favorite team that you would want to see? I mean, I'm sure the Padres, of course, but are there any other teams? Because I brought up the Padres. I thought that'd be a fun team with Machado, Tatis, and Soto, of course, as your trio for the future.
For me, my favorite team besides the Padres would be not Dodgers. In all seriousness,
that's what Lindsay said too yesterday.
Yeah, in all seriousness, if the Dodgers were to trade for Juan Soto, I will actually be like zero, like maybe only 5% mad at them. And the reason why is because I'll be more mad at the rest of baseball continually, for some reason, and this is in the case of trading, and he still has 2.5 years left. All right, maybe there's some under the table stuff that if you trade for him, he's going to want to have but this isn't the NBA, so I have my suspicions with that, right? Where guys, the NBA could be like, I ain't playing, and that would actually like work. You know what I mean? That's not gonna really like work in
like Harden
in baseball. Yeah, like Harden and stuff like that. Ben Simmons, all these guys, right? But my thing is, I would only be like 5% upset with them. I would be looking around the league and saying, because if the Dodgers do it, it's not like the Dodgers have that their top level of their system. I know there's like Billy Martins or whatever that guy's name is. And Miguel Vargas, like they have prized prospects, but there are some other top level prospects throughout baseball. And as I mentioned in my episode talking about the Juan Soto trade and whether or not the Padres should do it, these trades almost never for superstars, and you've talked about this too, net back an equal package. We always do these mock trades where it's like, here's what the Padres have to give up: Abrams, Hassel, James Wood, Gore, Abrams, and they have to send a fruit basket and also tickets to Secret Wars when it comes out in 2028, and then also a sneak peek at Avatar 2, and then also like it that never happens, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be a trade. Like we thought that the Scherzer trade last year would probably cost a pretty penny. And it's not that it didn't cost anything for the Dodgers, but the fact that they also got Trey Turner from that deal, Keibert Ruiz is like fine, I guess. He was kind of like the prize part of that package, but that's basically what I'm saying, where it's rarely that. So for me, in theory, I actually think that the pool of teams that could trade for him is actually a lot bigger than just us looking on MLB.com and saying, oh, well, this is the amount of top prospects, so only this team could do it. You can't tell me that the Cardinals couldn't do it. You can't tell me that the Mariners couldn't. You can't tell me that the Braves couldn't. Like, I just genuinely believe, and I know the Braves just trade for Matt Olson, but I think you get my point. I think that there's a lot more teams out there that could do it.
No, that's how I feel. I feel like the Nationals are probably going to mess up this deal and probably get fleeced in a Juan Soto trade because, like you said, usually the net return you get back is never that good. I mean, look at Nolan Arenado and all those deals recently that we've seen. They haven't been that great. And if I'm the Nationals, like, do I want to give the Dodgers just another star player for my system?
I mean, they did it last year, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, do you want to go back-to-back seasons where you just give them your top 3 players off your roster? Like
Mike Rizzo, he's a sleeper agent. I said this a year and a half ago. I called it. I was like, guys, he is a sleeper agent for the Dodgers. And look what's happening right now. If he goes to the Dodgers, I'm going to retweet my own tweet and everything. I'm going to be like, look, I told y'all he's a sleeper agent. And sometimes that happens every now and then throughout baseball and sports. But
yeah,
the
Nationals,
the most reprehensible. Yeah.
Yeah, the Nationals are like a feeder team basically for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But it's like
they won, right? So they have an excuse to be like, well, we won the title.
Mm-hmm.
We won in 2019. So we're good. It's all good. You know what I mean? Like, we don't care if we have these bloated albatross contracts. And we'll see, I guess, how it all transpires. I will say most overrated storyline we've had.
Oh, I like this.
Enough with the private planes. You know what I mean? Enough. First of all, enough with rich gajillionaires flying private planes to like a place that takes 3 minutes to get to, right? Enough of that, just in general. Shout out Kylie Jenner. But for this case, is it petty? Yes. I thought it was funny, personally. Like, that was my reaction. I was like, this is funny. Juan Soto is making a good amount of money. He can afford to do a private thing. Or he could fly commercial. What is this, Toy Story 2, and he's flying in the luggage? Relax. And then 3, Scott Boras could do it. So there's just a lot of, don't get me wrong, the Nationals are petty as hell. Like, like they are, and it's whack, right? We talked about this with the Oakland A's and Blackburn, right? Like, it was the same sort of thing. But the A's, it's very like, that's classic A's. You're literally reliving that scene in Moneyball when they says, I got to pay $4 for soda or whatever. But for this, it's like, enough. I've heard enough of this. And the second thing I'll say is, he stinks, but I need everyone to realize that Rob Manfred is excellent at his job for a certain specific group of people.
This is the take right here that we needed. Yeah. Rob Manfred's excellent at his job. Ooh.
Oh, he's excellent at his job. He's great. He's great. And the reason he's great is because, and don't get me wrong, I think that actually baseball does a better job of its fan base and its media culture actually critiquing owners more than, say, the NFL. That love to destroy Goodell every single year for good reason, but then they ignore like all these other players. And look what the Houston Texans have been doing, right? We've been following the Deshaun Watson case. I think Rob Manfred has been amazing at just being the figurehead and the target for fans' ire everywhere. I will say that the lockout was bad, but I also think that, guys, we missed like spring training games. You know what I'm saying? Like, the lockout wasn't actually this disastrous thing in terms of fan perspective. I'm not talking about the people actually affected in jobs and whatnot, but as a fan thing, guys, you miss spring training. Who cares? Like, relax. I don't know why I got into a soapbox mode. You got to save me before I say something I regret, Miller. Come on. Give me some spice of your own, because I know you're a spice master.
Well, do we feel like we, as fans, from the perspective, we're only okay with the lockout because it ended quickly? Would you be having the same energy toward Rob Manfred if the lockout actually went in toward the season? Let's say we missed the first 3 months of Major League Baseball and we had another shortened year, which I actually like. I didn't mind the 60-game season. But if that scenario happened, would you? Yeah, it was awesome. Like, we're all in favor of cutting games over here, making a shorter season. Like, that was a phenomenal time. But would you have the same energy for Manfred if you missed the first 3 months of this Padres season?
No, because that's like actually affecting the season, I think. And in a way that's a little bit more substantial, and saying the last time Major League Baseball had a strike, which is a point a lot of people have brought up, that like their audience dipped massively, and then the steroid era had to bring it back, right? That if that were to happen again, if you were to see a drop off, especially with all the momentum they had, at least in terms of talent, then yes, I think that would be bad overall. He's not as, I'd say Goodell is better at his job than Manfred in terms of being the targeting practice that just kind of shields from the owners, because he's just had a lot of slip ups. Rob Manfred, like with the recent thing about minor league wages.
Yeah.
But I think
He just
people have
says
to
a lot
understand
of things.
he says a lot of really publicly bad things. I didn't care about the piece of metal comment from back in 2020. I thought everyone was overreacting. And granted, that could just be the echo chamber I'm stuck in on Twitter. Like, yeah, it was dumb, but I'm not like mad at it. You know what I mean? Like, there's some things where like, guys, you can't actually be this pissed off about it. Like, if you're
Was
a
he
player,
lying?
totally cool. But it's just like, relax, guys. You know what I mean? A little bit. I don't know.
Was he lying? It was a piece of metal.
I mean, it was,
It's
but
actually true.
it's just a dumb thing to say. It's dumb, it's dorky, and it's kind of like
Yeah, I typically don't have many. This might be the first Rob Manfred conversation I might have ever had on the podcast. I don't. Yeah, I don't have too many of them. Just because I'm not too concerned with the MLB commissioner overall. Like, obviously, like things with the Astros cheating scandal, people had like a big deal with, but most of the times, like with commissioners and stuff, like it's gonna be hit or miss. Like they're just there to do whatever the owners say anyway. Like they're just like the messenger basically for these owners. They just carry their water. So most of the time, it's like I don't know how much anger I could really have toward the commissioner, because at the end of the day, they're just a shield, like you said, for the owners, and they're just doing what they say. So most of my anger and irate is more toward the owners than Rob Manfred himself, or just commissioners in general. Unless you're Roger Goodell and just handing down suspension to Saints bounty gate stuff, when in football you're just there to hit people anyway. So why are we getting suspended when people get knocked out of games? That's the hot take there for you.
Careful now, Millard. I don't know about that one, man, but
that's a hot take. We're trying to hurt you on every play already in football. So what's different if I put a little money on it now? Okay,
stop.
All right,
stop it. I'm not trying to get canceled. I do not endorse that specific message, but no,
I've heard other players talk about it. I'm okay to double down on it, but you go ahead. That's a side football talk. We won't even get into that.
I will say that just with the baseball, like it is true that I think that baseball is also in a different situation than football, right? But they're largely target practice. I mean, in the Major League Baseball, like one of the shortest tenures a commissioner's ever had. I am blanking on his name. This shows you I wasn't prepared, but the shortest tenure a commissioner's ever had is because the guy went after George Steinbrenner. And it's like, well, yeah, if you guys have to understand these they can't really go after the people that they're essentially
that's their boss.
So yeah, like and that's what happened. And then he was out, and then we brought in a questionable lad in the name of Bud Selig. But yeah, I think that overall, baseball 2022, I think it's been good as a whole for the most part. I think the Dodgers, at least they haven't been dominant. Yeah, I've been enjoying the season. The Padres have been good, although I have some fears for them for the second half. I think that I think baseball, I think we also saw that the home run derby is really fun. Like I think the home run derby, they really changed the rules in a way that were great, and I think better for the sport. I know that there's still things that people complain about. I still think that the extra innings doubleheader, or whatever you call it, the shorter 7-inning doubleheader, I think was great, but we got rid of that, unfortunately. And what's another good storyline? Let me think. We had that Tommy Pham fiasco, which was
that was probably so far the storyline of the season so far.
That was wild. I will say that there's some weird stuff with, like, you know, Pham has had a tough life and whatnot, and I know he seems like angry all the time and what have you, but it was a crazy story. But there is a little bit of I like that sports fans treated that story the way I think people should have treated like the Will Smith thing, where it's like, this is hilarious and dumb, move on. You don't have to make this a giant thing about society. Man, we are just letting the takes fly today, man. But like, no, in all seriousness, that's what it was, without getting too deep down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
So you're pro slap?
I'm not pro slap. I'm pro having watched it. That's what I'm pro.
So you had a good time watching someone else get slapped.
I am thrilled that I saw it live. That is what I'll say.
Oh, you saw it live. Were you there?
I did. No, I wasn't there, but I saw it live. I was there for the part when everybody's like, hey, real or fake? And I was like, bro, like, not to be the media guy and whatnot, but like broadcasting, you don't go silent. You don't have the mic cut off for that long on live TV. You just don't do that. You do it for a second when someone curses. You don't do it for that long. And that's because he was cursing and yelling at Chris Rock, so they had to bleep out for like 8 seconds. But yeah, I thought it was real for the beginning, and it was wild, and I am glad I saw it live.
And we needed it. I mean, it was, like you said, it was one of the biggest story, like, we finally had a national baseball conversation again. Like, it was probably the first time since the Astro scandal where like every sports show around the country was actually talking about baseball, which is sad because the only other time baseball might get mentioned on like a national TV is if Shohei Ohtani has 4 grand slams and pitches a no-hitter in the same game.
Right.
Like that's like the only situation where baseball is getting talked about. Otherwise, it's did the Astros cheat again, or did Tommy Pham get slapped, or did he do the slapping, vice versa? So baseball needs some more storylines for sure. I think an interesting thing for this baseball season maybe is the American League. When I look at that conference, I think the Astros and Yankees are like the only 2 teams on pace for 90 wins. Like, the American League Conference hasn't been like that dominant this year. Like, I look at the National League and I look at the teams. I like those teams a lot better. But you look at the All-Star game, and it's like the American League wins the All-Star game every season. So I don't know what it is, if it's like a talent distribution thing in the American League, or is they're just more top heavy in the American League. It's pretty interesting to see the two contrast between the 2 leagues, because I feel like the National League is so much deeper in terms of teams, but I kind of like the position players a lot more in the American League, because when I look at those 2 lineups, like, you had 2 Contreras starting the National League, and you got like freaking Mike Trout coming off the bench for the American League. I know that's not really what happened, but I just feel like there's so much deeper in the American League in terms of talent, but the teams are actually worse, which is like a weird contrast.
Yeah, I think that, and I think you're on point. I think that it is a little bit top heavy with the Yankees and the Astros. And there's been like some disappointing teams. I think Toronto's up there. For me, the White Sox aren't disappointing because I really genuinely kind of saw it coming. And I think that the White Sox are a good reminder. I think they're a good indicator, even for Padres listeners who have maybe disagreed with me on my takes about Soto and whatnot, that like things can flip so quickly. The White Sox were probably, I'm going to say, with the exception of the Dodgers, maybe the Astros, maybe not the Astros because they just had their whole cheating scandal, like heading into like the 2019, 2020 seasons, like the best outlook for a team in Major League Baseball, I think it was them, because you have Tim Anderson, who starts forming into a star, and he's even better this year. He finally seems to be a super duper star. He's been great. And then you have, Yoan Moncada, you have Eloy Jimenez, you have Luis Robert making his debut, you have Giolito, you have Dylan Cease, you have that trade for Lance Lynn, you have so much going right, and even one last kind of okay year from Keuchel, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019. Like, I think that era of White Sox, it just shows you, they're a reminder of how quickly things can flip. They've had a lot of injuries, I understand, but there's just a multitude of things that are going wrong. They don't seem to have the same prospect capital and farm system that they once had, partially because they've been promoted to the majors, but and their salary, it's not like they're the Milwaukee Brewers, right, where they're not spending any money. Like, they do have a decent payroll. So it just shows you, it is a reminder that things can flip really, really fast. And hate to be this guy, but it is not just money that makes the Dodgers so successful. It's a huge part of it. Let's make no mistake. It's like 50% or 60%, right?
It helps.
But, they brought up Bellinger. I know he stinks right now, but they got Kershaw, they got Urias, they got Bueller, they got Tony Gonsolin, who was great this year. I love seeing him give up that home run, by the way. The fraud that he is. Will Smith, right? And all these guys, and Max Muncy, I know he's been a little bit bad this year, but they, and Justin Turner, and they have a lot of good stuff on that team. They had Kenley Jansen for years. It's a good farm system that's able to replenish and not be super top heavy. I would say that I don't remember the last time the Dodgers had a like top 10 in all of baseball prospect, but they've always got like a deep system behind it, so that they can refill and whatnot. So they clearly know what they're doing. And I think the White Sox, just to circle back to it, good point of, these things can change, man. Even my team, the Padres, after 2020, they are the story of baseball. And I'm not saying that just as the Padres host. They are the story of Major League Baseball, with Fernando Tatis, with Machado, with the Slam Diego, and literally breaking a record with the Grand Slam streak. You have the Nelson Lamet, and then you make all these trades. It shows you how quickly things can change. It's just hard to see it now, right? Because all you see is Juan Soto. Guy's a beast. And I get it. It's different. I get that he's genuinely different than some of these other guys that have been on the market. But I'm just saying, guys, the sport of baseball is freaking cruel, and it is never kind to people who rush into things, at least usually, except for maybe your 2000s D-backs, apparently, who went all in and then won and then said, see ya. You know what I mean? It did work for them, but like, for the most part, man, you got to be careful with this stuff. You really do.
Yeah, and whoever, if you're trading for Juan Soto, you should be a Juan Soto piece away from being close to a championship contender or World
Mhm.
Series contender, because Juan Soto is not going to make a difference in terms of you winning between 70 games and winning 90 plus games. Like, he's not going to be a 20-win player for you. I mean, we've seen that with the Angels, who are probably my biggest disappointment of the season, just because the
Ugh.
way they started the year. They
Ugh.
were at one point in that wild card race. We know about the talent on their team. I mean, Mike Trout
Ugh.
started the season. I know I love to hate on Mike Trout, but I'll give him his flowers. The boy's a beast, and he was on fire once again to start this year. Looked like he was on his way to another MVP campaign. Ohtani started a little slow from a position player standpoint, but from a pitching perspective, like, he's right there in the Cy Young Award race this year. And even Taylor Ward has had a great season. But even with all that really good talent in the lineup, and some of their rotation members haven't even been awful this year, the Angels once again just can't get out of their own way. And it looks like as we approach the trade
And
deadline, like, they'll
I
probably,
was buying into them, man. I
I
really
can't
did.
blame you.
And I don't, and I never do. I think none of us do usually. But this year
No.
I said, oh, Taylor Ward. I kind of like Brandon Marsh, and I like Jared Walsh. I think is legit good.
Mm.
They've regressed dramatically. And then I said, well, you have Ohtani, and then I kind of like the Syndergaard signing, and you have some other stuff, right? And I said, oh, and they invested a lot in their bullpen. I was like, I'm not saying they're a best team in the league, but I was like, I think this finally could be the year. But maybe that was just me hoping and whatnot. And actually, Dan Zabrowski, senior writer over at Fangraphs, was like, I have to admit that I want to see the Angels acquire Juan Soto, because I'm legitimately curious if they can get 20 wins above replacement from Trout, Soto, Ohtani in 2023 and still somehow go 79 and 83, which is like the genuinely sad. It is take Dan Marino's career, but it's an organization. That's basically the Los Angeles Angels, and it is genuinely sad. And if I'm them, you really need to start thinking about.
Oh, you
I
got to
don't even
say,
know though. Do you have to start thinking about? I was started thinking about the Trout trade, which people have been talking about for years now. But do you look at this and say, Otani's going to be a free agent after this year? Someone's going to drive a dump truck, garbage truck,
a
a
Billy.
Ferris wheel of cash
I'm
to his
asking for a
place?
Billy, 3/4 of a
Yeah,
Billy.
yeah. I mean, I just think that
I pitch and hit.
you at least have to actually really consider it more. Or I understand if people's perspective is you just can't do that because you're not going to get the value and you're going to lose 2 Hall of Famers. So you might as well just try. No one's going to hate you for trying when you had these 2 guys, right? They'll be like, all right, we accept that we have to rebuild for another 20 years, but you have to at least just try as long as you can with these 2. But
I
man,
mean,
they were like the only team that they spend so much money, but they keep missing. They missed on Pujols. They missed on Upton. Rendon is looking like a miss.
Rendon.
Raziel Iglesias is looking like a miss. I mean, the only contract that's kind of worked out for them is Mike Trout.
Ohtani.
Like, well,
Trout,
Ohtani too,
Ohtani.
but like
Yeah.
Mike Trout, like that's the only one that like they gave the big deal, and it's killing them. Josh Hamilton, it's just
Oh, I
I
forgot
feel
about the
so bad.
Hamilton one.
I know, man. I feel bad. I feel
CJ
bad.
Wilson. Did you
Oh,
mention him already? That
oh,
was all the same summer. That
oh,
was a huge summer for the Angels.
oh.
That was when baseball offseason was at its peak before the lockout frenzy. That was like peak baseball. That's when the baseball offseason was just as much fun as like NBA or the NFL, because literally when you got to those winter meetings, that's when that free agency
I
started.
know.
That
I remember
frenzy.
that too.
You just don't get that anymore in baseball. Like,
Yeah,
now winter
yeah.
meetings, they just come and go, and you're like, all right, I guess one reliever, Liam Hendricks, signed with somebody. I guess that was fun. Like, you just don't see that stuff anymore. And it was like, whoa, this the guy and that guy. There's so much movement before, which is dumb. But that's a big reason why I didn't have the Angels on my list of teams I want to see Juan Soto get traded to, because I've already seen Mike Trout and Ohtani there
Yeah.
for a long time. It's like, I don't want to see Soto waste his career there too. And just on your point, like, maybe the Angels should think about moving Mike Trout just because you've had him so long, and it's like you've been rebuilding with him for like a decade plus and it hasn't gone anywhere. But really, the move that needs to happen is Mike Trout pulls up his pants. He said it's time to start winning. I'm tired of losing. Go into your GM's front office and say, listen, I'm going to have to pull out my NBA trade card here, and I'm going to have to request a trade. I'm going to have to do the Kevin Durant and say, move me literally anywhere. I don't care if it's the Dodgers. I don't care if it's the Twins. I don't care if it's Kansas City Royals, because at this point in my career, any franchise is probably going to give me as good, if not better than a chance at winning than I've already had in my whole career with the Angels. So if I'm Mike Trout, I think it's time to ask for a trade. And I know baseball players don't usually do that. I mean, we saw Juan Soto. Hopefully, Juan Soto setting a precedent of turning down long-term deals, because I've said a lot. I don't want to see 15-year
Yeah.
deals. That's not fun. Like, I don't want to see a guy sign for 10 plus years. I want to be 3 to 5 year deals like basketball or football. And then you hit free agency again. And then we could talk about all those rumors and stuff and off-season stuff. So hopefully Mike Trout actually requests a trade. What do you think about that? Should Trout say, get me out of Anaheim because this place sucks and I've been losing my whole career?
I don't know if he has the personality to do that. I don't think
No.
that that's in his nature. But
We
if
saw
he
him as a
did,
commissioner.
it would be wild, right? Like it would be wild and it'd be chaotic for the sport. I mean, that would put another enormous player on the market. And the Angel at least they at least have to be thinking about it. They have to be thinking about it's not like he's going to get better. I know he's literally a Hall of Famer already, but you think you could get a really great return for this guy. Like you really could. The Soto
If you're
thing
talking
is
about,
obviously enormous too, but you could get a great return. So you have to at least think about it. Maybe you say we make this giant trade of him, and then we kind of maneuver things and build around Ohtani, maybe. But like, I'm just saying because the Ohtani thing also has the blockbuster factor of like, do you just want to lose that presence of like the best like athlete the sport has seen in so long, right? Like, do you just want to have him on the team for the sheer factor just being able to be relevant, right? And have people want to come to games just because of him? Remains to be seen.
how much you paying Ohtani hits the open market? What's a number you're comfortable with? 6 million? 600 million, I'm saying? 500
I
million?
think he cracks 500 for sure, but I don't know.
Because
Man,
no one's basically gotten more money than Trout when he signed like that $400 million deal. That's basically been the industry standard. No one is making more than Trout. And I think Ohtani probably should, just because he does, obviously, both sides of the ball.
I think we're going to see, depending on the team too, because I don't know, like, because there's a universe where we don't necessarily see Ohtani doing both if he signed with a better team. Pablo Torre made this point of ESPN a while ago with that like ascending intelligence meme where it was like, oh yeah, but he's wasted on the Angels, and then it progresses, and then it's like, well, actually, the Angels are so bad that it's the only team feasible because not that they're just bad, but they also aren't in rebuild. So it's literally they need him to do both. So like it's the only team that would have been like that. If he was on the Royals right now, he'd be only hitting or maybe only pitching. They'd want to save him and whatnot, right? But that was a good point. I would.
We need both, though.
I
We
can't
don't
wait.
want to.
That's going to be huge, though. It's going to be enormous, that contract.
Yeah. We need him to do both, though. Wherever he signs, if he does leave the Angels,
please.
it can't stop. We got to keep it.
He will.
Yeah.
I imagine he will, especially because it's been proven now. I just think at the beginning, especially like, hey, remember, like he struggled in 2020 and 2019, like he was good, but I could see a world where if he was on the Dodgers right now, they're like, actually, you're going to pitch for 2 months, and then maybe every now and then we'll use you at DH, like every now and then because some guy got hurt or what have
he
you.
might
Right?
might not crack the lineup or the rotation for the Dodgers.
Yeah, like that. Like I could see that universe playing out because they're actually like competent organizations and whatnot.